Thinking about the rise of AI, the possibility of a second civil war, or someone taking your stapler, even if you're working remotely, these 90s movies don't just got you covered, they're more than worthy of a redo. Thanks to the 2022 Hulu miniseries Pam and Tommy and the 2024 movie The Last Showgirl, Pamela Anderson is experiencing a well-deserved renaissance. While she didn't star in Pam and Tommy, the series did include reshot scenes from Anderson's 1996 superhero movie Barb Wire, which, while not exactly a reboot, did get us thinking. Based on a Dark Horse comic character and set in a dystopian future America, Barb Wire follows Anderson as the titular bar owner who fights off various enemies and helps a scientist escape to Canada.
I do believe I'm falling in love.
Get in line.
It didn't exactly do well in theaters, nor did it get very good reviews. But with the right creative team behind a reboot, it could make a memorable impact on audiences, especially given its second American Civil War setting. Artificial intelligence might seem like the butt of many a joke these days, thanks to all those extra fingers and kids who don't want to do their homework. But at some point, it's pretty safe to assume that society will be completely transformed by the technology, which is a topic that's been explored again and again in sci-fi movies. And there's one half-forgotten flick from 1995 with a premise that's now more relevant than ever. Virtuosity stars Denzel Washington as police officer Parker Barnes, who's imprisoned after accidentally killing several bystanders while in pursuit of the political terrorist who took out his wife and daughter. He's then recruited to help develop an AI entity called Sid, played by Russell Crowe. Originally intended to train the police in virtual reality, Sid is an amalgam of various violent criminals throughout history, including the man who killed Barnes' family. Obviously, though, Sid is an evil mastermind that can't be contained by normal people, which is where Barnes comes in. The story could use some editing, but the misuse of AI is a topic that offers plenty of promise. Between anxiety over climate change and depression from the isolating use of social media, it seems like young people are less likely than ever to be hopeful about the future. Or maybe that's just because Gen Z and Gen Alpha have yet to be captured by the type of milestone teen movies that inspire a sense of generational camaraderie. So perhaps we should turn to an overlooked gem from a few decades ago to rectify that. When Can't Hardly Wait came out in 1998, it was exactly the sort of teen flick for late Gen Xers and early millennials. The story mainly follows Ethan Embry's Preston, an outsider who's working up the courage to proclaim his love for the most popular girl in school, Jennifer Love Hewitt's Amanda. But it's also a story about a bunch of people trying to make the most out of a high school graduation party, which makes it a perfect template for a reboot.
But fate's finally given me a second chance.
A 21st century version of Can't Hardly Wait wouldn't have to be a scene-for-scene remake. After all, the original probably wouldn't resonate as well with teens today as it did back then. But if it instead just kept things simple and focused on the thrills and anxieties of graduation, while also including social media, cell phones, and anything else that didn't exist in 1998, it could manage to be a real snapshot of what it means to be a teen these days. It's not surprising that 1990's Darkman was written and directed by Spider-Man and Evil Dead director Sam Raimi. An underrated, compelling fusion of the superhero and horror genres, Darkman stars Liam Neeson as Dr. Peyton Westlake, a scientist researching a material that could serve as synthetic skin for burn victims. When a crime boss blows up Westlake's lab, while he's inside, he's left badly burned and disfigured. Westlake then undergoes an experimental nerve treatment that grants him relief from his pain, while also enhancing his physical strength and the intensity of his emotions. Darkman is fairly heavy on body horror, a subgenre that's having a moment thanks to the success of The Substance and A Different Man. Darkman received relatively favorable reviews upon its release, but it hasn't had the cultural longevity of some of Raimi's other projects, which means that a remake wouldn't be sacrilegious. A successful reboot would pay fond homage to the original while refining and perfecting its thematic elements, and maybe Neeson could even return for a cameo. There are several reasons why the sci-fi thriller Strange Days was a commercial failure when it came out in 1995, but the biggest ones were the instability of its funding and poor marketing. It wasn't a bad movie so much as it was a product of everything that can go wrong when making a big-budget action flick, and it enjoyed some decent reviews. Roger Ebert gave it 4 out of 4 stars while praising its sophisticated depiction of technology. Ultimately, though, Strange Days failed to make back its budget and nearly sank director Catherine Bigelow's career. But it's definitely ripe for revisiting. The story is set in 1999 Los Angeles, where crime is rampant and people are embracing a new technology known as squid. The tech allows people to record their lived experiences onto tiny discs that others can use to re-experience them.
Straight from the cerebral cortex. You're there.
It's similar to the technology featured in Cyberpunk 2077, and is something that continues to come closer to real life, as trailblazing companies research virtual and augmented reality. A Strange Days reboot doesn't have to keep the original story, but the visual aspects would only benefit from present-day special effects. Plus, audiences have a much wider frame of reference for understanding this sort of technology than they did back in 1995. Some movies are appreciated in their time, others are not. Event Horizon is definitely one of those that falls into the latter category. It failed to make back its budget at the box office and received abysmal reviews from critics. But its initial failure is a little puzzling in retrospect. It's got a strong ensemble cast that includes Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill, a compelling premise, and some pretty incredible scares. But mainstream audiences just weren't ready for it in 1997. Set in 2047, the story follows the crew of the rescue spaceship the Lewis and Clark as they respond to a distress call from the Event Horizon, a ship which had supposedly disappeared forever 7 years earlier. Oh, and that distress signal? It consists almost entirely of screams and howls.
I'm not even sure if it qualifies as language.
When the Lewis and Clark arrives, its crew discovers that everyone on board the Event Horizon has been massacred, and then things escalate from there. The good news here is that even if we never get another Event Horizon in theaters, there's at least a TV show in the works at Amazon. David Fincher is known for dark, twisty thrillers and thought-provoking dramas. In 1997's The Game definitely fits that mold. It stars Michael Douglas as Nicholas Van Orton, a lonely billionaire who's about to turn 48, the age his father was when he killed himself. On his birthday, Nicholas gets a visit from his estranged brother Conrad, played by Sean Penn, who gives him a voucher to participate in a mysterious game run by a company called Consumer Recreation Services. At first, Nicholas believes he's rejected from the game, only to later question everything that's going on around him.
What is this?
This is your game, Nicholas, and welcome to it.
The game succeeds as a 2-hour puzzle box that combines a sturdy premise with Fincher's signature ability to capture the atmosphere of a man on the edge of a nervous breakdown. It actually performed pretty well with both audiences and critics, but it's also one of the director's deeper cuts, so a reboot wouldn't ruin an overprotected cultural legacy. There's currently a TV adaptation in development, but this really feels like a story that's best experienced in theaters. In a world where the truth seems ever more relative, we might need a reboot of Liar Liar more now than ever. The Jim Carrey-led comedy follows divorce attorney Fletcher Reed, who loves his son Max, but consistently fails to be honest with him. While Max is blowing out the candles after Fletcher misses his birthday party, he wishes that his dad could be forced to go an entire day without telling a single lie. His wish comes true, and Fletcher must then face the many consequences that have resulted from his years of dishonesty.
You know why I pulled you over?
Depends on how long you were following me. Eesh.
Liar Liar did well at the box office when it came out in 1997 thanks to Carrey's star power and solid reviews from critics. So there's no need for a reboot to correct the past. But a comedy about someone who can't lie could still be fun in 2025. Maybe instead of a lawyer, it's a PR executive, and the truths they spill are actually met with skepticism. Dark City had a lot going for it, but it was a victim of bad timing. It came out only a year before The Matrix, and despite the similarities between the two, it seems that audiences in 1998 just weren't quite ready for a high-concept sci-fi flick about an alternate reality. In the years since, though, it's amassed a dedicated cult following. Directed by Alex Proyas, Dark City stars Rufus Sewell as John Murdoch, a man who awakens in a hotel bathtub with amnesia. He attempts to evade a mysterious group known as the Strangers, who are trying to find out who he really is. Dark City is well suited for a reboot. In spite of the similarities to The Matrix, it's got an ending that feels more finite and optimistic. It did well enough when it came out with a decent box office and mostly positive reviews from critics. If The Matrix hadn't come out so soon afterwards, Dark City could have established itself as a sci-fi mainstay, but maybe now is the time to finally make that happen. Office Space certainly is not a movie that lacks in quality or memorability. It has a passionate cult following and was pretty well reviewed when it first came out. It perfectly captured the ennui of dead-end white-collar jobs, while also recognizing the often underappreciated service workers through Jennifer Aniston's memorable turn as a burnt-out waitress. Simply put, it's a great film that has remained relevant more than 2 decades later.
What about today? Is today the worst day of your life?
Yeah. Wow, that's messed up.
There are plenty of fans who'd love to see a sequel, but writer-director Mike Judge has said he's not particularly interested in producing a follow-up. But that doesn't rule out the possibility of a reboot, which could be adapted to the new realities of the post-pandemic world. American workplace culture has been permanently changed by mobile tech. On top of that, we've got the rise of both the gig economy and remote work. A new office space could be a great opportunity to capture the plight of a new generation of desperate workers. Eddie Murphy has been revisiting some of his past hits with sequels to Coming to America and Beverly Hills Cop. But what about one of his lesser-known films, like, say, 1992's The Distinguished Gentleman? It stars Murphy as Thomas Jefferson Johnson, a con man who scams his way into Congress thanks to an untimely death and a confusing ballot. Once he gets there, he realizes that Washington, D.C. is full of liars just like him. The movie was panned by critics, with Entertainment Weekly's Owen Gleiberman declaring, "There isn't a gram of satirical thrust to the distinguished gentleman's portrait of congressional hucksters. As portrayed here, they're just jolly cardboard stooges in expensive suits." So a reboot would have a lot of work to do to get things right. But fortunately, America's political climate is still ripe for this sort of satire. Maybe even more so than it was 3 decades ago. Not only that, a reboot has the potential to truly capture the overwhelmed and exhausted current mood of the American public.